Hey everyone, welcome to Nerd Talk. I'm Mike,
I'm Chris.
and today we are going to just kind of give you a rundown on some of the crazy news that had happened this past week with the announcement of PlayStation's brand new controller, the DualSense, and kind of going through inside Xbox's live stream that happened middle of last week. So with that being said, we're just going to give you our thoughts on kind of what was announced, what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, and kind of go. So why don't we just jump right into the PlayStation since it's not as much information to delve through as Xbox.
Yep,
Um,
sounds good.
so we know that they announced their PS5 controller, which is called the DualSense.
Yep,
It's an interesting design in that it's the first controller that's multicolored, it's both black and white as like the main controller, not like one of the spin-offs, the crazy color varieties that they eventually release after the fact, but like the main controller is black with like a white overlay.
yep.
Um, they talk about a couple features here. Um,
So just on the design,
yeah,
when
go
I
ahead.
first saw it, I was like, it looks like a love child between the Xbox controller and the PS4 controller kind of
Yes,
thing. Like
it does.
it's got the
Absolutely.
the curved shape, but it's a lot sleeker, like kind of not as bulky it seems, but still has the same layout and functionality somewhat as the PS4 controller,
Yep.
but just kind of making it look a little sexier, I
And if
guess.
this design is to be believed as like final, there's no more color on the buttons. They're all just gray.
That's right.
The
Yeah.
symbols, the sacred symbols. So, yeah. So as far as the controller innovations, so to speak, they talked about, what did gamers love about the DualShock 4 specifically? And while they always want to add new functionality and refine design, they figured that the parts that aren't really innovated on in video games has to do with audio as well as touch. They decided that they thought they could somehow make the increase the feeling of immersion by adding sensitivity to the feeling of the controller and how it interacts with the from a sensory touch standpoint.
That's right.
So they discuss that via haptic feedback, which gives them a lot of powerful sensations. I'm assuming it's very similar to HD Rumble with Nintendo Switch and how that
Yeah,
works.
I wonder if there'll be kind of like depending on what game, some force back or resistance. If you're turning like in a racing game, if there's some pull or push or stuff like that or resistance, it might be interesting if they did that a bit more.
Yeah, well, they did specifically talk about one of the sensations you'll feel is the slow grittiness of driving a car through mud. So you'll feel that in the controller itself. And again, they've added some adaptive triggers into the L2 and R2 buttons of the DualSense. So now you can feel tensions. So like when you draw a bow, it'll feel harder to pull back. So
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, that's cool. So again, you're gonna feel the rumble of the car as it kind of jitters and stuff, as well as how hard it is to pull the trigger on the different weapon you're using, or when you're grabbing something heavy. Stuff like that is supposed to adjust the pressure and how hard it is or easy it is to pull that trigger. Give
yeah.
you
Try and
the
get you more immersed into the game and feel like you're a part of it. So
exactly. Um, so they talked about that. They talked about a lot of the parts that we thought was great. We kind of left design as far as how many buttons they have, where they're located is pretty much the same. They changed where the light bar is, so instead of having a big light bar at the back of the controller, which was initially used for the camera PlayStation Eye to determine which character was sitting where, they've moved the light up to the front of the controller on the sides, so it's not as bright in your face, but you can now see the color, which their initial intention was to use that for some gameplay innovations, such as player health or ammo or things like that. They can now showcase that. So not only is it like, oh, you're blue, you're yellow, you're red, but that light can now actually be used the way it was initially intended to be used back on the PS4
that's great.
with maybe perhaps removing a HUD off the screen and having it in your hands. So
Yep.
they have that there. Um, uh, what else did they hear?
So they got rid of the share button. So
Yep.
they switch it with the create button, especially with so many more people, going on streaming or YouTube or making content. So now they're kind of going into that newer age where social media, you can post right away. You can make it for yourself. You can put it for your videos. You can just clip all these things and have it ready to go. So it's one less people don't have to go through a different system to record what they're playing and go from there. They can kind of just clip it, upload it, and then go.
Exactly. They also talked about a built-in microphone array. So for those who don't have headsets, they can take part in voice chat right from the built the controller right off the bat, which is a
Yep, yep.
smart innovation, I think. Um,
Definitely, yeah, it'll help for people that, if you're playing for a long time, having a headphone on your ears, it can be annoying. Also traveling is one less thing that you have to bring or lose or connect or anything like that. So as long as they have it, I'm sure they'll test it thoroughly, but as long as they, you don't pick up too much, more than what a normal over the ear microphone would pick up from, gameplay or music or whatnot or background noise. I assume they'll make it pretty similar in the controller that way.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Um, what else did they discuss? Oh, and in regards to the shape of the controller, the grip, they wanted to change the way that it works, so it's a more rounded edges, more comfortable ergonomically for your hands. Again, as we mentioned, it kind of looks a little bit like the Xbox controller from the shape of it, from the
That's right.
sides.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they did that, and then of course they talked about the colors and the fact that normally they always have a single color, but they now have a white overlay above a black controller. What it looks like so.
Make it a little
Uh,
more flashy, more new age. I mean, I like the black and white color. I thought it was nice and made a good contrast on it and made it look, pretty sleek.
So I don't know if you have the image up. So I'm looking at it right now, and it reminds me of Eve from Wall-E. The white
Yes.
shiny shell, the blue lights, and then the blackness, and it just like, oh, that looks like something that Eve would be using, right? So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting there. Um, Let me continue here. We got yeah. So I mean, if those are the main features that they discussed. Again, it's interesting design. I'm not sure if I'm sold on it, but I am happy with the changes that they've innovated on and how they've improved it. So that's always good. They talked about
Yeah.
better battery life, which I think was the PlayStation's weakest point. Was I think of all the controllers, the PlayStation's battery seemed to die the fastest in comparison to like an Xbox. If you buy the portable chargeable batteries and put it in the controller,
Yeah.
the
So
Xbox
this one,
ones last longer.
I believe, has the rechargeable batteries on this as well. So that should extend the battery life similar to the Xbox controller.
But are they replaceable or is it built in like the PS4?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if they actually went through it, but I know that they did talk about having the rechargeable via USB,
Yeah, and just the
and
way the
then
design looks from the images, I think it's the same as the PS4. Is like, oh, if it dies, you have to buy
built
a new
in.
controller. You can't replace the
Yeah.
battery pack, which I don't like. Because why do you have to keep buying new controllers just because of the battery? Like, if I look at my Xbox, if my battery pack dies, I buy another one. My controller, there's nothing wrong with my controller. In fact, I've never had to replace a controller for my
Yeah.
Xbox ever because of a dead battery. Never.
Yeah.
And as far as my Nintendo products are concerned, they've always used double A's, except for the Wii U Pro controller and now the Switch Pro controller. Excuse me, the Switch Pro controller has a built-in chargeable battery, right? It has you charge it up. But I believe even that, I don't remember opening it up if that can be replaced. But regardless, the Pro controller is the best from a battery standpoint. Lasts close to 80 hours. I charge it once and it lasts me a week minimum. Like I never have an issue with the batteries on that, and that thing is from my experience is one of the most controllers I've held. Xbox is a close second, but I really love the Pro controller. The only thing I don't like about the Pro controller is they don't have the offset thumbsticks, analog sticks like the Xbox does have. But I do like the feel of it, the heft of it, the size of it. It's just overall, I think it's a really well designed controller.
Yeah.
So if PlayStation can put in a better battery like Nintendo and have it actually last, 40, 50, 60 hours where you're not charging it every day or after every session, you're charging it, once a week, ideal. So
I agree.
let's see what they mean by better battery life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all they gave us. Very interesting that they're going for feel, most specifically on the controller.
Yeah. I mean, I see why they're trying to do it to get you to feel without being 3D. The graphics will be better, trying to get you really immersed in the game and feeling everything that you do, and maybe being able to give that for the developers that extra layer of, you can put this into your game. You can put this feature where this gun feels this way, or another weapon feels a different way to customize it so not all the weapons feel the same. You get bored with it quickly. This vehicle is different than another, and so on and so forth. So it's another element that these developers can kind of put into the games to switch it up to make the user enjoy it more and be in it a bit more and invested, and then not get bored as quickly possibly.
Absolutely. So hopefully, they're making the right steps in the right direction. We'll have to wait and see when it launches and the price point of not just the controller but the PlayStation 5
Yeah,
as
yeah,
it is.
and they're
Um,
really quiet about the specs and the actual system.
they are.
They really haven't announced much. regarding the specs, or official release date, or pictures of it, or anything that way. Well, Xbox, on the other hand, have gone the opposite way, and I mean, I don't really know much about their controller, but I know a lot more about their system and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
Microsoft pretty much went through everything as far as the processors that are on it, the graphics card that's in it. Like
oh
Digital Foundry
yeah,
did detailed and like specifics on it. They did some details on the PlayStation as well, but a lot of it was some of the information from PlayStation, some from developers because they didn't have everything from PlayStation directly. But we do know that the Xbox is going to have more teraflops. It is going to have I think it's the same amount of cores, very similar CPU, and I think even the memory is fairly similar, if I remember correctly. I think it's just different in how they divvy up the graphical core. PlayStation talked about having separate audio chips to free up space on the on the GPU, and how where it's designed and how close the CPU is to to the GPU, and how fast they can transition information to get you faster load times and all this stuff. And so they basically talked about like, well, our numbers may not be higher, we're technically better because it's going to improve it. This is how we're going to improve load times. This is how we're going to improve XYZ. But then you see Microsoft kind of come in and say, well, here's 5 games. We can just jump back into each one and resume exactly where you left off.
that was
So I have
crazy
5
to
games
see
running, and
that.
I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And PlayStation didn't have anything similar to that, right? I'm sure they'll have a resume play, but I don't know if they'll have 3 or 4 games running at the same time. I'll have to wait and
Yeah,
see. Um, but yeah, let's. So I mean, that's PlayStation. Let's jump into Xbox. So we know Microsoft did an Inside Xbox
that's
streaming
right.
event middle of last week, and they despite COVID and everything that's kind of going on, they had each developer and each person stream from their own house, and obviously that with game footage and stuff kind of spliced in, they put together this presentation. I thought they did very well.
I agree.
Um,
I agree. I thought this is something different that everyone's kind of learning as we go with this pandemic.
yeah,
And I thought they did a really good job of getting everyone set up, knowing what their role was, and then putting it together.
absolutely. So they had a bunch of announcements. They said right from the get go they were going to focus on Grounded, Obsidian's new game, Gears Tactics, and Sea of Thieves were the 3 big games. But obviously there was going to be some indies thrown in there, a little bit of talk about Project xCloud, a little bit of talk about Game Pass and some other Microsoft stuff. So yeah, so I think they opened up with Grounded, if I
They
remember
did.
correctly.
Yeah.
Really, really cool game by Obsidian, and interesting idea. It is have multiplayer components. You can play with people. It is a survival style game, but it's not like apocalyptic. It's not,
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in the game,
yeah,
essentially, right?
yeah. So your enemies are bugs. It's no aliens, no monsters, no
Yeah.
like,
But they
uh,
do hint that there is kind of an evil organization or
yes,
someone that you're kind of facing against, where they have like little labs or little machines and stuff like that. So there is that kind of, so it's not just the bugs as the enemy, but you also have this kind of secret organization that you don't know about, but they're hinting at a bit. So
which
I
I
thought
think
that
is
was
going to
cool.
help pad out like the story of the game, which makes
That's
sense.
right. Yeah.
But it's really cool how they like you have like a thrown piece of a garbage like a pop can on the floor, and like you can go in it and then you can create a base and you can do all this stuff. So it's very like, oh, like you got these like survival aspects where you're kind of teaming up with other people or by yourself. You're building a base. You're crafting, like very Minecraft esque in that sense,
Yeah.
building up stuff. You're surviving at the night, trying to fend off, enemies.
Weapons, all these
Yeah,
things,
get new weapons. I'm
gear.
sure there's stuff that breaks down and crafting materials and stuff. But then there's actual story and missions and stuff. And it's a really cool new concept on the same like style of genre, if you will.
Yeah,
So
and
I
he has
thought,
this machine buddy that kind of helps him. That'll be like your tutorial feature, your
yes.
your storage system, your all these things where it'll come in and help you out throughout the game. So
Yep, I like that you can play it single player or multiplayer, so it's just like hop
hmm
in and out anytime, which is great.
yeah,
Um, love the graphical style of it, very bright. You think being in a backyard and grass and dirt and whatever, it'd be very
dark.
monotonous, but no, they did a really great job with that, and it looks like there's going to be not just on foot shooting and melee combat style fighting, but there is aerial stuff with flying enemies and stuff,
That's right.
jumping on the back of someone or building contraptions. I don't know. It looks very, very interesting overall. So I'm very excited to see how this game is gonna end up, like how well they're gonna sell. I'm really interested in it.
That's one of
Yeah,
the games that definitely piqued my interest when I saw it. It was a good start to it, and they had a lot of gameplay footage and a couple scenes on what type of enemies you're facing and bugs and all that kind of stuff. So they really got in depth into it and were really pumping it up, which got me excited for this game.
perfect. And you don't have any audio issues with me speaking, right? Everything's clear on your end.
Everything's clear, yeah.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, so that was grounded. And I'm not going into the specific order of things, but they touched upon Gears Tactics. So I thought you'd probably have a little bit more insight on, like, were you interested in Gears Tactics? What they
It
showed of
looks
it?
very interesting. It's a different type of, I think that you have three moves that you can make, and each moves. So you can choose, move, shoot, attack, defend, kind of thing. So it's very turnstile based gameplay, which is intriguing. It's based off the sun, I guess, of the last game, which I didn't really get a chance to play,
Gears 4?
unfortunately. Yeah, so but it's based off the
Or
sun
sorry,
from the
Gears 5
Gears 5.
was the one that was just released this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I believe it's based off the son of that character. Um so it's, and they're going after the kind of a king locust creature.
Mm.
So it looked very interesting, something different. It's something I would expect from a mobile game. But yeah, it did pique
But
my
is it
interest,
mobile? Like
and
it's only on the phone, or it's on Xbox as well, right?
I thought it was on Xbox. Um, yeah,
We know the pop game is mobile, right?
yeah. So it's definitely on PC.
Yeah, I figured because tactic games do really well on PC with mouse and keyboard and kind of click. This is where you're gonna go. This
Yeah.
is what you're gonna do. Kind of set things up like that.
So
But
it's available April 28th on Windows P10 PC, Steam, and Xbox Game Pass for PC beta. So
yes,
it's just a PC.
and I just said that Gears of 5 came out this year. It was actually last year. I said this year, but I meant
Yeah, yeah.
we're in 2020 now. So okay.
So
Um,
it is very interesting looking. I think they could make a mobile version of this and have it do well.
mhm.
I believe they had a Pops kind of mobile
Yes,
version of Gears, but they could definitely kind of transfer this over to the phone side, the
absolutely.
mobile side. So that yeah, it looks very interesting. I'm sure it'll be very tactical, and you have to have different. They say that you can level up a bunch of players to like 150, and I think there's 30 different player bases, or 15 to 30 different player bases, something like that. So and each player has certain attributes and feats. So you depending on what level you want different teams, I assume. So it'll be very tactical and kind of thought based gameplay. So
Absolutely.
something different.
Yep, I agree. They touched on Project X Cloud and kind of like they're launching in 11 new countries. Or again, I say launching. I think it's still in beta because I don't have the option to like join it. I think
Yeah,
they're still in testing before it's officially rolled out. It might not be an official
11 new
official.
Western Europe countries
Yeah,
across Western Europe.
I think before it's like, hey, pay this month, much a month, and get on it. I think it'll probably be day and date with Series X. I would assume that's the plan, right? And just
That would
launching
make
it
sense,
more and more
right?
and more and getting more adoption and testing latencies and all that kind of stuff. And then, okay, is this good enough for us to like slap a price tag on it and offer it or include it for free as part of Xbox Live or whatever the options they're going to do and kind
That's
of do
right.
that going forward? It'll be interesting. But yeah, they talked about that and it's great. Great that they're kind of going on with that. And I've heard good things about it. I would try
Yeah,
it
it
myself,
seems.
but
Yeah, it's something that I'd like to check out and see. I can see them kind of throwing that in when you buy a system, 6 months free or 3 months free or whatever. They used to do that with Xbox Live as well. So this could be, replacing that, and you get a bunch of games that you can test out. And if you end up liking it, continuing on the pro subscription program. So
especially if the rumors are true and this thing's going to cost like $700 to $800 in Canada, then yeah, that would make sense that would be included for free. So it's like, you know what? You're paying so much for the system, you can't afford to get a game or two. Here's xCloud for 6 months. Now you have a bunch of games
exactly,
at your
get into it, play
fingertips.
your system,
Yeah,
have
or
fun.
if not if not xCloud, Game Pass for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So that makes sense. They jumped into some indie stuff with Journey to the Savage Planet DLC, a Hotline Miami collection, and the Last Campfire, which was done by the developer Hello Games, who did the spacefaring game that was launched. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago now, which was the biggest game by far at the time from a size standpoint, like how big, and everything was procedurally generated. All the planets and everything were all done. It's all like what your game is not the same as anyone else's game and stuff. And I thought it was really well done. But a lot of the features of this game, what was expected, the way that they talked about it, wasn't there at launch. And so now they've added a lot of updates and a lot of features to the game. Where I think just this month, or coming out this month, they just released this new mech. You can now get in this mech that you can build and walk around, and with all these new abilities. And so, there's terraforming, there's base building now. There's like so much more to this game, which a lot of people wanted that or expected that to be in there from the get-go. So for no additional cost, by the way, it's all free. So Hello Games is a great developer. Had some hiccups at first, but I think that they definitely have the talent, and I think that this game showing that they wanted to do something else, a story-driven game.
That's right. It was really close to home. They said like is like a personal project of theirs.
Yeah, and I'm interested in it. It's puzzle based. It gives you this like mystery of like what's going on, and you're going through this journey trying to figure out. Ember, I guess, is your character, and kind of like what is his plan is and stuff. And I'm hooked. I'm interested in jumping in that. I'm curious to know what the price of this particular style of game is. It looks like a smaller scale style of game, so maybe it's a $20 game, $30 game. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm definitely intrigued at giving that a go.
Yeah, it looks very interesting for sure.
Yep. And then
they went into a lot of in-depth talk about the Series X,
yes,
the
they did.
technology background of that, the added system that you could use, so you can bring all your games over and play it, digitally, technically, with the US or the storage that they have custom made for them, or you can plug in your own
external hard
drive and play. But I laughed that they made sure to say, if you want to play any Series X games, make sure it's on the actual drive, or their Xbox exclusive external hard drive.
Yes.
USB plug, it looked like, to play it properly.
And I understand the reason behind that. So PlayStation talked about that. So PlayStation talked about having external storage capabilities, and talked about that we're in testing right now to determine which specific drives we'll be supporting, because there are speed, throughput, and latency differences between SSDs, especially NVMe drives. And so depending on how they develop these games, they have internal drives, obviously, and so the game is to be installed, that's expected to run at certain performances based on how the architecture is. So if a game is installed locally on the hard drive that's internal, that's literally connected directly via a frontside bus to the processor, you're getting like less than a millisecond response. Yeah, so things are going to load really quickly, and it's just how they interact is
it's made crucial that way, right? Like they made it to function that way inside the system, rather than what external hard drives are made. It could be for general use, like a PC, laptop, anything, right? It's not made just for these systems.
That's right. So if you're
test out different ones.
Yeah, and if you're playing a brand new, Series X or PS5 game where it needs to, the code is designed in such a way that where it's loading up stuff instantaneously based on how you react, and then you introduce a hard drive that's going to add 3 seconds of latency in there. That's going to completely hiccup the game. It's going to cause issues with the game running properly, because the stuff is not loading where it's expected to. You're going to get bugs and problems, or potential crashes, even depending on how bad the latency is. So I can understand what I'm saying. The brand new games, we recommend you run it all installed on the local hard drive if you have enough space, if you haven't used it all up, or by the specific expansion, because we know that the benchmarks that we need for these games to run at a specific level, whatever their benchmark is, needs these speeds that are, again, been tested through their hard drive that they've stamped on. Same with PlayStation. Exactly. They said that we know that the speed you need is X whatever seconds it was. We are in testing, 3, 4, 5 manufacturers, and once we figure out which ones are suitable for PS5 games, we'll let you know. So like, please don't go out and buy just any SSD. Wait for us to say, here are the 5 we recommend to get the best experience. And I understand that. Being a technical person myself, I get that, how that works and why that's important. Now, exactly. I do like them saying that, oh yeah, right now you have an Xbox One X or an Xbox One S, and you have an external hard drive because you have maybe the original that has a 500 gig hard drive. You're running out of space. You plug in a USB, which is what they support. You can run your games off the USB hard drive because the speeds are fairly similar to the internal connection. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
They said you can just unplug it, plug it right into your Xbox Series X, and pick up just like as if it was a new updated Xbox One. So
Yeah,
it's going to play everything off the hard drive the same because again, it's used to running on that speed, and you don't have to install anything, update anything. It just realizes, oh, all the games are already installed. Here are all the files. Away you go, and away you
yeah,
play. It's instant, which is great. So it's not a situation of, well, I had just recently got a Xbox One X, and when I logged in and loaded my Xbox profile, my games obviously weren't installed, so I had to go through my Xbox Gold list, re-download the games, and then of course, then when I connected to the internet, my saves were then downloaded, and I was able to continue from where I left off. But that's a process to know that, oh, the games are installed on my hard drive. I just plug it in and boom, you can start playing within seconds. That is awesome. No need
exactly.
to
Yeah,
redo everything again or re-download or refine. It's already
yeah.
there. So I
And you
like
don't have
that.
to worry about losing anything,
Nope.
and you can just pick up and play, just plug and play kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
great.
So good on them for that. They definitely talked about supporting, any USB hard drive, but
Yeah,
you want the best experience on the new stuff, use what we recommend and go down a
exactly.
list of that. I'm sure besides their specific Xbox, we'll get people like Digital Foundry and other tech companies who will open up the drive, find out exactly what drive they use, what the specifications are, and say, okay, here are 5 other ones that will meet that specification, and then you can go buy
Yeah,
whatever you want. But at
exactly.
least there are options, which is great.
Yeah. So another feature that I love that they introduced was picking up and playing, resuming the game. So you can, I think they showed like 5 or 6 games where it's just like,
Yes.
oh, I stopped this game, click right into it. There's no delay. You pick right back up and pretty much pause where you were and you just resume the game. So if you're feeling the game, you're like, let's play this game instead. Or someone hops on and they're like, oh, let's play together in this game. You can literally just click right over and start up and go at it. So I love that feature as well.
Yeah, and Xbox One had that for one game, not 3 or 4 at the same
That's
time. So
right.
that's great, especially because it's like I'm gonna play a multiplayer game, and then I have this really story-heavy driven game that I'm into, and then it's like you get into it, and then you have something that happens on home with your kids or family, or a friend calls and you got to step out, or someone says, "Hey, let's jump into this co-op game." So you stop, flip over to this other game, and you can jump right back in whenever you have that time. So you can switch between
Exactly.
different experiences, especially if you're a person who is playing 2 or 3 games at once, and you just, you know what, I like this single player story driven games. I need to be in the mood for that. And depending on what's going on in your life, you might also be playing a crazy like party game or massively multiplayer game, and you're able to just jump into whatever flavor you're in at that moment. Great.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that feature. It's great to see that.
Absolutely. The other big game that they talked about was updates to Sea of Thieves.
Let's check. Yeah,
They
that's right.
showcased some new DLCs, a new Ori themed ship sails and mass is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a lot of new features to the game. They're still updating it, and as far as I know, I don't know if it's paid. I think it's free.
I'm not sure if they said anything about free or whatnot. I know it's arriving later this month.
Yeah, it might be paid
Um,
because the game is on Xbox Game Pass, but I can't remember if the DLC is paid or free. But great for them to keep adding more and more reasons to kind of like continue that online community and keep it going.
definitely. Yeah. Especially with an online community, you got to keep things new and fresh and keep updating it so that people are, still interested, not, bored or staled with it.
Yeah, and then I think you had mentioned they had also talked about Forza Street for mobile.
Yeah, yeah. So they're releasing the Forza Street May 5th, the
Hmm.
mobile game. So it was very popular on the PC. It's been around on the PC for a while, but now they're introducing it to the mobile and kind of customize it a little bit that way so that it works. But they're expecting it to be a pretty big seller for them, I guess, and use game for them.
Absolutely. So at this point in time, based on the presentation that they showed, some of the big games that are coming, we know Halo Infinite obviously is going to be a launch title. We know that
Yeah,
they have 10 other big studios that are working on games that they own now for Series X.
that's right.
Um, I know it's early, and I know PlayStation really hasn't revealed that much yet. We do know that there are some big titles in development for PS5. We don't have any release dates, any inklings of kind of what's going on, especially with COVID. We know that a big Last of Us 2 got delayed,
That's right.
definitely right now, and then Ghost of Tsushima would probably also get delayed.
For sure, two big titles for them, and could really hurt their system sales if they release the same time as Xbox.
Yes. Now on the flip side, this could also be like, well, Last of Us 2 is pretty much going to be done, or was targeted to be done, but because of not being able to get the physical copy out to people worldwide in the time that they need, and under the circumstances, they said we're just going to delay it indefinitely. So things kind of get back on track. So with that being said, if they're pretty much done the game at this point, the team, Naughty Dog, is going to work on their next game, whether it's a brand new IP or whatever they're going to do, which is great. They have that in their back pocket. If they decide, okay, you know what, we're going to release this as a launch title with the PS5, to kind of get those sold right away, in addition to say, oh, it's obviously also coming out to PS4.
Yeah.
But it's also going to be a PS5 title, day and date, and that there's the new launch title. And then because of that, because that's been delayed, Ghost of Tsushima is probably also going to be delayed. So now they have both those titles slated for the PS5/PS4, because a lot of people pre-ordered and have that, for the PS4. But they have that now as two great games you can get on the PS5 day and date, probably have the ability to upscale and look even prettier on the new system. And yeah, I mean, it just kind of gives them that strong start that they need to kind of get that system going, because we know that Microsoft has Halo, and I'm sure they're going to have one or two other big surprises in their pocket. PlayStation hasn't announced anything, especially if there was no COVID. Last of Us 2 would be out, and Ghost of Tsushima would be out in,
I believe it was June or July, something like that. But
so it would be out before the system launch. So what does PlayStation have for the launch of this system? They'd have to rely on third parties, and I'm sure there are going to be some great third-party announcements, assuming that their big games don't get delayed. Like what happened to Cyberpunk? That got bumped. Is that still going to be slated to come out now in September, or is that delayed again? We don't know.
Oh, I'm sure that will be delayed again. Like Marvel, the Avengers game's probably going to get delayed. Like a lot of games, I assume, are going to get delayed. Not maybe because they're not done, but maybe because they can't get it out to everyone, so they don't want to only let it out in certain areas, and have that backlash, and not could be a big headache for them trying to figure out shipping and distribution and stuff like that, and what stores will carry it, and what what's open and whatnot. So everything's up in the air right now. But I'm really surprised how quiet PlayStation's been the last year, 2 years. Like they didn't even attend E3. Like Sony was just radio silence almost, just little tidbits here and there, or little announcements, but not attending the big shows, just doing little ones and doing their own kind of things. But so I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I think that well, let me ask you this. So based on the information that we have right now, based on, let's say money was no object, from the perspective of let's say that each system cost $10, like it didn't matter what the price is, but you could only buy one at this point, based on what you know about the systems, the capabilities, and we don't know much about the game lineup, just what we know right now. Which would be a day one to buy for you between Xbox and PlayStation at this point? Again, let's not pretend, again, because this always sways people's decisions. If all my friends have this, I'm going to get this so I can play with them. Let's just assume that your friends...
If I was playing by myself...
No, let's just say your friends would all buy the same one that you chose. Which one looks more appealing to you?
The one that looks more appealing to me right now is the Xbox, to be honest with you. In the past, I've gotten both. This past generation, I only got the PS4. But I find some of the titles for the Xbox that are announced, like I'd like to get back into Gears again and play that. Halo is going to be very exciting and interesting to play. They have so many developers kind of in-house now for Microsoft. It's very exciting. So I think the upside, from what we know so far, I mean, Sony could come out and just say, oh, we've been keeping all this secret because we want to just, completely mind blow everyone. But right now, I'm very excited and intrigued by the Xbox and all their announcements, their specs, their games, and developers and stuff like that. So I would sway that way. How about yourself?
Yeah, I completely agree. I would definitely say that I'm definitely more intrigued to Xbox. So I got my PS4 before I got my Xbox One. Wasn't a long difference. I think it was within maybe a month of each other, but I got that one first specifically because of the exclusives. I was more into what was available on PlayStation, and just the way Xbox One came out, they dropped the ball with like the games being locked down, game sharing, all that kind of stuff. They just had so many issues with the messaging and like how the system worked. It just wasn't appealing. So PlayStation won me over because I like the 360. I had the 360 from the get-go, and I didn't get the PS3 until like 2 or 3 years later. But it was like, yeah, I was definitely I've always been a Nintendo guy from the get go. That's always been a day one purchase. And then I jumped on Microsoft's bandwagon when they had a few exclusives that I liked, and then kind of got hooked from there. And then it became my third party machine. Now with this generation of PS4 and Xbox, I got the PS4 first, and that's kind of been my main machine for all third party games, whether it be Ubisoft games or EA or whatever. I always get the main game on there just because it's just been like the one that I always play. Most of my friends have the PlayStation, and so if I'm going to get a multiplayer game, it makes more sense to get it on that platform. The issue though is that because I got my PS4 pretty much at launch, I have a 500 gig hard drive, so it fills up pretty quick. In fact, I only have like two main games installed plus a bunch of indies because the size of them.
The size,
Yeah, I have to delete. So I'm like, I'm playing a single player game. I want to jump into this and this. I can't. I gotta finish this completely. Know that I'm done with it. Delete it and get the next game on, which sucks. Whereas like on the Switch, I have 4 or 5 games installed. Plus, I have the cartridges I can swap. On the Xbox, unfortunately, I didn't get as many games. Like physically bought, I think I have 2 games for Xbox One. I have a lot of digitally stuff. Yeah. But I just didn't like third parties. I got everything on my PlayStation. So for this generation, I wasn't hardcore on Xbox. With the Xbox One X, they kicked Sony's butt from a technology standpoint, graphic standpoint, performance standpoint, and it looks like they're doing it again. And after getting my hands on an Xbox One X and playing some of the third-party games again that I got via Xbox Gold, Game Pass, stuff like that, yeah, the performance is great. I love the interface. Again, the controller is awesome on the Xbox One. So this next generation, based on everything that we know, Xbox has definitely been the one that I'm most interested in their ecosystem. And I think that might be my main system for all third-party games, especially if the graphics and everything's better on there. And then I'll get a PlayStation eventually on a Black Friday sale or something, and then get a couple of exclusives on sale. And that'll just be my machine that'll be like, oh, that Sony exclusive I really want to play, I'll get it. But it'll pretty much be an empty hard drive because I'll be playing everything on Xbox. So right now, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to the 360, that was my main one because, again, exclusives, the Gears. There's a Pitch Black series that I really liked from the movie and the Vin Diesel movie.
Yep.
That was an exclusive to Xbox as well. So they had a bunch of exclusives, and that was my main go-to. Playing with buddies and stuff like that. And then when I had a PS3 as well, but it wasn't as many games, not as many exclusives that I had. And then for this one, I found that PlayStation, a lot of my friends got that. And so I went that way and just stayed away from the Xbox. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the Xbox more than the Sony one right now.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. That was the majority of the news that kind of took place. From a Nintendo standpoint, Animal Crossing is kicking butt from a sales perspective, and it's still doing well. Yeah, unfortunately, they haven't had any huge stuff that's coming. We already did our review of the mini direct that had happened a couple weeks back, but I'm hoping that we'll get a really big surprise come E3 with their big direct and kind of what's coming up the rest of the year, and obviously what's coming up next year. And I really hope that some of their big game titles that are in development aren't going to be crazily delayed. I hope we get through this global pandemic sooner than later, and I hope that we kind of get back on track with some of the stuff, because it would suck that like right now we've seen some delays, but this ramification, if this happens for 3 months, 6 months, can affect games that are coming out next year and even the year after, depending on how workforces, some have to shut down and some have to work remotely, but they can only do so much remotely. So exactly. Hopefully we don't get like a 6 to 9 month drought and have like no games coming out because of this hit.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens and what all these developers and companies do, and everywhere really, essentially, and where we go from here.
Absolutely. So there you have it, folks. Those are our thoughts. We are super stoked on Xbox. We think Microsoft is doing everything right for this next gen. Yeah. PlayStation, we're hoping that they come back swinging, but right now it just seems like it's a losing battle for some reason.
Xbox just seems to be doing everything right now. Like,
yeah,
just buying the right companies, partnering with the right ones, giving the right amount of information, attending the right shows, talking to the right people. Just really focusing on what people want rather than what they thought people wanted in the past and stuff like that.
So I think that Sony is just so happy that they did so well this generation with selling as many PS4s as they have and whatnot, but just because
they might be hoping that people will just continue on thinking that sitting on their bandwagon, but people always adjust with the time and go with what's best or what
Yeah.
they feel is best. So
Yeah, exactly.
interesting.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens next gen. I think right now it's so I think Microsoft is in the lead, and I think they're going to come out really strong. It really comes down to the pricing of their units, and again that starting lineup. What games can you get on either platform? And a lot of them will be the same every generation. They always going to have third parties that are available on both. Sports games are available on both.
That's right.
Assassin's Creeds and stuff like that. That's available on both consoles. But if for those games, it's always come down to where your friend's going to be. But there's more and more cross-play stuff that's coming out. There's more and more games that are just doesn't matter what system you're on, what platform you're on. You can play with your friends wherever you are. And if that is going to carry through going forward, especially with Microsoft having their games launch on PC and Xbox simultaneously day and date now with Game Pass. We know that PC and console can play together. There's no reason why the third party developer can't have PlayStation folks play with Xbox folks, especially because that's already happening with Fortnite and other things like that, right? So if that is a big feature of next gen, if that's the case, then there's no reason of, oh, I'm going to buy an Xbox because my friends have it. People are going to buy an Xbox because it's better, or PlayStation because it's better. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I'm stoked to kind of get into this next generation and kind of see what's in store for us.
Definitely. Me as well. Me
Yeah.
in the same boat.
So there you have it. That's our thoughts on the news. But let us know what you think. Drop a comment below. Let us know what you're most excited about. Are you more stoked for Microsoft or Sony for their platforms? Let us know what you think of the announcements on the Inside Xbox event and on PlayStation's new DualSense controller. Are you happy with any of those announcements? Are you disgusted with any of those announcements? Let us know. Drop a comment below. If you'd like to support us, please subscribe to our channel. Please like our videos. We'd really appreciate your support. And as always, friends, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.